Donington first saw open wheel racing here close to a century ago. And while this track hasn't been continuously open during that time, it's accrued some incredible moments in motorsports history. From the awe of Senna in the rain to the excitement of Mansell in touring cars, and even the tragedy of Billy Monger's famous accident. With all of that, our drivers prepare to add their own memories to the list as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL Formula 3 series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is John Ambrose. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. John, I love the variety of cars that have run here in real life. They'll try just about anything at this track.
Oh, that they will, Joe, and I think we'll see just about anything for these guys tonight to stay on the track. So it's going to be exciting here in the UK. That's right, we're back in England at the Donington Park Circuit. This track is infamous for tight battles, for wrecks. Exit of pit lane coming back onto the track. To get a first glimpse, though, of this track, let's jump aboard the Renault 2.0.
All right, we've got Scott Newton, the GSRC Formula Renault 2.0, so let's do a lap around Donington. Coming down the front stretch, you'll want to pull the car to the left and just dip your wheels over the pit exit line for the best entry to Redgate. Try your best to late apex this sucker because you'll need the speed later on as we head down the hill. From there, the track weaves back and forth through the crater curves, and ideally you want to hug the left side to get yourself set up for the old hairpin. This can sometimes offer passing opportunities, but it's hard to tell until the last second on whether the car ahead will defend. Off the right-hander and under Starkey's Bridge, the track bends back to the left where you'll need to straighten out this last kink to open up McLean's. The crest and the decrease in radius on this blind corner make it one of the most difficult ones to get right. Cars often drift wide on exit. Then it's a short blast to Coppice where once again you can't see the apex until you're right on top of it. But this bend has two halves, the sharper first part and the flat-out second part that opens up. Bring the car back to the right on the way down Starkey Straight and line up your brake marker for the heavy braking into the S's. You can take a lot of curb on these, but be wary of straightening them out too much or else you'll get a cut course penalty. From there, we drop downhill into the Melbourne hairpin, which will probably be a popular passing spot. Square off the exit here to ensure you've got a good run up to Goddard's. If you're under attack and you defend, expect someone to pull an over-under move. Bring the car back to the right, and now watch out on entry because there's a surprising rise in the track that adds to the difficulty of hitting the apex. Once again, try to focus on your exit with us coming back onto the pit straight. Hopefully you kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Donington.
You see an idea of what it's going to be like for these open wheelers out here, but before we get back to what'll be happening on the track, I just want to remind you that we are sponsored, of course, by NinjaTrader, ready to compete against the financial markets. Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Now, let's take a look at the championship since we've gotten one round complete. It's pretty simple to follow because, well, David Holland won last week, so he is up at the top of the charts. Clenard and Santana rounding out the podium. LeBlanc and Cranefuss are, of course, in the top 5, but don't forget Greg Seitz was fast last week, and he's fast again this week. So even though he's not there in the points, this newcomer could upset things, even though he had a bad finish last round at Japan. Let's look at the team's championship as well, John, as we've now got points on the board for that as well.
Yeah, as you can see, the Vantage Zero and Vantage Rosso are 1 and 2 there, separated by 20 points. In third is Whataback Ramrod, 27 points behind. Blown Tranny Racing in fourth, and SRT Esport Blue rounding out the top 5 there.
Nice little tie there for fifth as well. Now, if you've never watched the Formula 3 series here before for the Precision Racing League, let's go through the race details for you. Of course, we are in round 2, as we mentioned. They have a 45-minute race that they will run. Even though it does say it is an open setup, they don't have the full fuel cell that the real cars have. They've shrunk those so that it forces a pit stop at least once during this race. They have an incident limit as well, 20 incidents, and you will be disqualified. There's certainly some off-track places that you could rack those up. There's your bonus points down at the bottom that the drivers can get as the race goes on. No spare car to try and save yourself. If you get damage, you got to come in and get repairs if you get any damage out there. As always, you're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. It's very easy to do. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe, and then you won't miss a moment here on IESN. But it's not just IESN that we want you to subscribe to, but also to the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll be airing this later on that channel. And if you go and subscribe there, you will be automatically entered into a giveaway. 2 people will be picked, one who has subscribed before December started and one who has subscribed during December, for their choice of item off of our merchandise store. There's just a few of the things that you can get from the store right there on your screen. Go and check it out in the link below if you want to see what else you can find in our merch store. Right now, the qualifying provisionally headed by David Holland, but it took him a few laps to get a quick one in. And he and Greg Seitz have been trading fast laps a little bit, but right now Holland, John, is looking much, much faster. 0.3, that's pretty big.
Yeah, it's really big. And, you know, I've noticed the track temperature, it's actually been consistent throughout practice early on before this broadcast. But yeah, this newcomer, obviously I've been out about 6-7 weeks. This new name is or new to me anyway. He's actually turning some impressive lap times. So it's going to be interesting to see. I see Rod Clenard there in third. There's no stranger up there in the front. James David, Canadian driver, there in 4th position. We still got a little bit about, over 5 minutes left of qualifying here, Joe.
Yeah, with the turnover of the season, we had an influx of new names at Suzuka last week, and Seitz was definitely one of those. So despite being a rookie here in the Formula 3 series, he's showing that he's got speed regardless. Nicholas Delp rounds out our top 5 for now. His last lap was his quickest. And we shouldn't be too surprised to see this here, John, because, well, they've got the new tire model out on these things. And as we've seen, it certainly seems to take a bit to warm them up.
Yeah, I was actually talking to David Holland right before the race, just kind of getting his input on the changes of the car, and more specifically the tire model. He really seems to show favoritism to the new feel of the tire. I haven't seen a broadcast yet, so I'm excited to see. What do we have? 38 drivers here tonight or today? I'm excited to see these guys on the track and what kind of strategies they do, knowing that these tires do, Joe, to your point, take about a lap and a half to come in.
Surprisingly, we were all kind of expecting, because it was a huge field, even bigger than this one at Suzuka. We thought that maybe there'd be a little bit of chaos at the start on the cold tires and there'd be some spinning, but it was actually relatively calm. As we watch on board Rosenbaum's car, he currently puts it into 21st. That last lap, unfortunately, not counting. With an off-track around here. You know, it's not just the off-tracks I'm worried about at this place, John. There's a few corners where you could get cut course penalties around here that I have a feeling they'll affect the race.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that 20 incident cap. You know, these guys ran here about 8 weeks ago, but it was obviously the shorter track. And you mentioned the corners and the cutoffs there. The biggest one, or the one I think is going to cause real havoc, is Goddard's. And I only say that because you have to make an abrupt left-hand turn to get on that front straightaway. And then you have to, if you're pitting, well, that pit entrance is right on just after the apex of that corner to go hard left in there. So if you're fighting someone and you're on the outside and need to pit, well, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, we'll have to watch out to see if anybody finds themselves disadvantaged by being in the wrong place at the wrong time and wanting to pit. We now watch Matthew Hall currently down, looks towards the latter end of the 26th there. The round cars as he comes out of Goddard's himself, basically trying to get that late apex in the 912. And as he crosses the line, this will only be his second timed lap. He's had a lot of offs here in qualifying, and he does not go quicker.
Yeah, you mentioned the offs. I noticed during practice, and I don't want to mention names, but I never saw the incident count before in the 3 digits until I looked over to the entries. So 20 obviously is a double digit and a very low one. So it's going to be exciting.
Bear comes across the line trying to improve, but stays pretty low on the field. Seitz is still working on trying to dethrone Holland, but has not made inroads on that 0.3 of a second, and definitely not for multiple laps. Holland's actually taking it into the pits. He feels pretty confident about that pole right now. Bradley Holly, the multi-time champion over on the oval side here in the PRL, currently down in 20th. We saw him do a little bit better at Suzuka. Looks like this one doesn't quite suit him as good. And his last lap did not count. He's got at least two more potentially here to try and improve. As we switch over to Josh Daniels, currently in 17th. Sits on a 1:21.4 as his quickest, and that was his last lap across. Let's see if he can go even quicker this time. He does. Another 10th up. But it doesn't gain him a spot. He's about 5/1000ths off of Lionel Duprat.
See James David here coming across, coming out of Goddard. Well, no, he's bringing it in the pits.
Yeah, looks like he's going to abandon that one. Just about 40-some seconds left as Greg Seitz comes across the line one more time. He'll get one chance after this one if he wants it, but he does improve. It's a 20.3, but that only puts him 1/10 closer to Holland. He still has 2/10 to make up just to get up with Holland, let alone pass him in time. Strykars also coming around, and that lap did not count for him. The 177 stays in 27th place. Just about 10 seconds left to go, so anybody who wants to start a new lap does not have much time for it. In fact, I don't think anybody can, because it looks like Kenny Rodriguez should come across the line as the checkered flies. So Rodriguez going to take his final lap. Doesn't improve, unfortunately. Next one across, that's going to be Matthew Hall down in 26. What has he got? Nothing better for him.
Joshua Daniels here coming across the line. It looks like he may... No, unfortunately not better than the last one there. David Strokes.
David Serwa also coming through. The number 19, 121.1 was his best, 13th. And he almost matches it, just a bit shy, but he does not go quicker. Strykars I see coming around. Pulling along Andy Spicer in the process. That's Seitz. Seitz is going to abandon his lap, so he will stay in second place. Let's see if Strykars can improve. He does. A 22.1 for him. That's going to put him up to 26, so marginal improvement. The Bear does not go any quicker on his final lap. And it looks like that will be everybody. The number 19, who is still out there, has already crossed the checkered flag. So at this point, he's just getting some warm-up. That's going to settle our field. So let's go through your starting order. David Holland will be starting on the pole with Greg Seitz next to him. That's exactly how it started last week, but it didn't end that way into the first corner. Rod Clenard will be starting in third with Jose Malbron in P4. James David starts fifth tonight with Nicholas Delp in the sixth position. Row 4 has Raymond Day to the inside in seventh. Eric LeBlanc will be starting in eighth. Then it's Stephen Veraday in ninth. Kevin Santana, a bit far down in his qualifying. He's in 10th.
In 11th is Jean-Francois Mattei. In 12th, Daniel Cranfus. David Schwartz will be starting 13th. Anthony Pisano will be starting 14th. Outside of him, Matthew Gunderson in 15th. In 16th, it's Lionel Duprat. On the inside of row 9, 17th position, Joshua Daniels. And on the outside of him, Sheldon Rosenbaum. Owen McLaughlin starting 19th, and in 20th position, it's Brett Thurman.
Bradley Hawley starts 21st with Andy Spicer in the 22nd position. Then you've got Aaron Webb in P23. Tyler Gore will be starting 24th, and then behind them on the next row, Jay Steffi, P25. Kyle Strykars improving to 26 on his final lap. Matthew Hall starts 27th, and Mike Richter in 28th. Kenny Rodriguez stayed 29th, and Christopher Richards rounds out your top 30. Of course, Paul Wildridge starting in 31st with Daniel Barnett in 32nd. The last driver to get time in was a Bear, 33rd. Then you've got the rest of the field at that time. Jacobson, Lee, Prul, apologies, we still don't know quite exactly how to pronounce that name, Sumner, and Chatley round out your 37 starters here today. Checking to see if anybody won't get out there. Looks like Sebastian actually won't find his way to the grid because he's not in the session right now. So should see 36 Formula 3 cars at the start when the green flies. Just waiting for the last couple of them to find their way out to the grid. In fact, it goes so far back, you can see a couple of them are going to be starting around the Goddard's hairpin. So that'll be tough trying to get the power down as you're turning steeply to the left. Let's see. Yeah, there's our front row finally finding its way out. Second row needs to be completed, though, as we're waiting for the fourth place driver to work their way to the grid. There we go for Jose Malbron. That should be all of them. So as the clock ticks down, the engines start to rev, the lights come up, and the green flag comes out. Off the line, much better for Holland this time. He's not under threat from sights as they fly down into the first corner. Red gate offers a passing opportunity. There was a little look from Malbron, but can't quite make it stick. Farther back, a little bit of 3 wide, but otherwise I'm not seeing any major dramas.
Yeah,
we did have 2 cars off.
I was about to say, what a great start. And then, yeah, we see the 2 cars there. These guys are getting single file quickly, going up through the high-speed right-hander here.
That was Strykars and Rodriguez who had issues, and they were off track with big damage. We'll get back to the replay in a little bit. Already they're heading through Coppice, the blind right-hander. A little bit of a gap being built by Holland over Sights. In the meantime, Clenard is staying stuck to the gearbox, so that number 74. They come down to the chicane for the first time. Hopefully we don't get any slowdown penalties here because they are going to hurt here on the first lap.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting corner to see if anyone tries to outbrake someone. But to your point, you know, that's also a great place to pick up an off track.
So far, so good from what we're seeing. The field continues to work their way around the last 2 hairpins and onto the front stretch. And David Holland is making very good of his pace that he showed in qualifying. Nearly a second ahead after 1 lap over Greg Seitz. Clenard following him, seeing if he can maybe do something, but still not close enough down into Redgate. One thing I'm curious about, though, is whether or not these tires maybe suit certain setups later on in the stint, John. So could we potentially see Greg come back at David?
You know, it's possible. That's a good, scenario to see what happens in playing out here. And also, will these guys take tires? I don't think they will, especially the tight battles we're seeing here from first through fourth. But yeah, this is going to be, you talked about the open setups. This is where it makes the difference, with too much camber or not enough.
Yeah, it's awful close back here between Clenard, Malbron, and David. Malbron almost had another go at Clenard when he went wide out of the old hairpin. Wasn't enough for him to try and get by, but now Malbron under attack from James David as he sizes him up into the Melbourne hairpin here. Looks like he's a little too far back this time. Behind them, it is awful close in the midfield. Daniel Cranefuss is hunting down Kevin Santana. So Kevin's still where he started this race, and a little bit of a look to the outside as Kevin goes defensive into the final hairpin.
Yeah, you mentioned that tight hairpin. I mean, what a triple scenario there. It's a sharp right-hander, it's off camber, and it's uphill. So the modulation of the throttle is probably the most, I would imagine, in that corner.
Still a little bit of an attack by Cranefuss on Kevin Santana as they come through the old hairpin, but Santana much smoother through that right-hander. And now Anthony Pisano gets a nice run on Daniel, looks to the inside up into McLean's, but that doesn't stick.
Ooh, as Cranefist goes off there, a little off track.
Yeah, he's certainly pushing these corners. It's almost a bit of a chain reaction down through this group. Soroy almost was able to do something on Pisano, but still they stay where they were. Did we have an issue with Raymond Day, though? I'm seeing him drop down the order, and I think he may have had a connection issue.
I'm not even seeing him on the screen. Oh, he's back. He's back.
Oh, but he spun. He spun out of Melbourne hairpin, and he's losing a lot of positions. There you see him on the side of the screen. Oh, and there's a car spinning on the other side of the hairpin. Who is that? That is Andy Spicer. I think he found the wall. What happened to Spicer here? Oh, you know what? He got a slowdown penalty, and he got clipped by someone in the process.
Look at the damage to that left rear tire. Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was trying to serve the slowdown, and two drivers were fighting behind him, I think. One not aware. Yeah, there you see it right there. And then, unfortunately, as he tries to go off track, as soon as he touches that grass to the left side, that spins him across again. Watching from on board. Yep. Wow. Man, as soon as that car hits, that tire just goes all wobbly, and the day is done.
Well, you Raymond Day fans, he's back on the track. It doesn't appear that he has damage. I don't know if he just had an internet connection failure there for about 5 seconds, and then came back and spun.
It certainly cost him a lot of spots. 26th right now as he tries to work his way back up through the field. You can see that David Holland continues to set the fastest lap of the race as things go on. But Greg Seitz, who lost about a second on the first lap, has only, up to lap 5 now, lost a few tenths each time. It's only 1.4 between himself and his rival, but he's not near close enough to try and attack.
Yeah, Seitz seems to be strong on the first half of the track. Going down the back half, though, that's where David seems to come alive, especially through those S's there.
So right on board with Greg, looking up at Holland. At least he's still got him within his sights. And if they do hit any sort of traffic,
that was good, Joe. Yeah,
that wasn't intentional. I promise. Until I said it. But Greg can see him regardless, and that'll be important as the race goes on. If he can get to him with traffic, maybe he could get a pass going. We'll see. It's not a terribly long lap around here. Aaron Webb, in the meantime, has been off, and I think that happened at Coppice. Don't think he hit anything. Let's watch the 85 here on the replay. Yeah, the Club West driver just went off for a run in the beach and eventually found his way back to the pavement, but that sent him to 27th. Oh, and Gunderson also, as we come back live. Gunderson in the wall, I think. This is the number 33 down in 18th. This was coming out of Goddard's. I think maybe he managed to keep it out of the barrier, but just barely.
He's got Bradley Holly all over the back of him.
Really does. And actually, I think he was overtaken by Thurman after that slip up there. So he's sort of sandwiched between two drivers right now. Holly up to 20th and seeing if he could do something on Gunderson. They all stay put as they go through McLean's, but a little wide and off the apex for Gunderson. Holly spies an opportunity, slips up the inside, down into Coppice, puts his nose in there, but he's not quite brave enough to completely send it. He'll stay put. So we're right on board now with Holly. Gunderson, who stays ahead, nice and smooth through the chicane, down towards the Melbourne hairpin. Both of them losing a little bit of touch with Thurman now.
And up front here, we have Greg Seitz, who just turned a full tenth faster than David Holland. His gap now is 1.2 seconds when it was 1.4 just 2 laps ago. So he is actually picking up the pace, Joe. To your
Yeah, there we see the laps between them. Holland, who was initially quicker, now falling back a little bit. And, this might pay credence to what we're hypothesizing on a little bit before about the setups maybe favoring Holland earlier in the stint. So the very chrome and shiny car of Greg Seitz has cut it down 2/10, but he's got to do more than that if he really wants to get this lead back. And remember, he's probably looking not necessarily for revenge, but for redemption, I guess you could say, after last week and tangling with Holland.
Ooh, that off track there is not going to help him.
Keeps it together at least. Yeah, that could be dangerous as things go on. Really flirting with disaster through that chicane. In fact, he did drop about a tenth through this sector. It's up to 1.3 for a moment. And if we could step back to sixth place, Delp and Verde have themselves a nice little tussle going on as they come down the front stretch up towards Redgate. That's Delp in front in the black and white. And the mostly black car, that's Verde. He's staying with him just right in his tire tracks, and though he brakes later, he's still not going to make a dive for it this time.
I see Nicholas is still supporting the trick-or-treat rims there.
Making it easy for you to spot him as we are riding on board with Verde. Coming up the hill, very steep, very blind into this right-hander of McLean's. And what amazes me, too, and probably is why we're seeing it so tough to try and make passes here, there's so many fast corners on this track, John. It seems like it's incredibly tough to try and pass because of that.
Yeah, not only that, but if you get too close to the guy in front of you, you literally lose all your visual of when to brake and when to turn in. So it doesn't behoove the person to kind of just suck up into the back of the gearbox.
And something happened to Holland. I'm trying to find it here. He lost a lot of time. You know what? I think it was a slowdown penalty. It was a whole lap ago, so we probably won't be able to get a replay on this. But David Holland cut the course in the chicane, and it was down to 0.3 of a second for a moment. He's turned on the afterburners and has gotten it back up to 0.7 of a second since then. But Greg Seitz gained a lot of time there.
Well, so that's okay. So now I think we're seeing the cards being played here that David has, and that is, I think he's got, the correct setup. I think it's just more of him probably managing his tires and trying to hold on to that, that consistency towards the end of the race. Because to your point, I mean, he was 0.3 from Seitz behind him, and now he's 0.8.
Oh, looks like Jeff Jacobson is our first, not our first DNF, but among our first DNFs here. He's in the pits. That's because he had to take a tow. Looks like about 40 seconds ago, he had an accident into the wall at McLean's. Took a hard smack. Let's see if we can get the replay here. Oh, you can see just after the incident, he's already lost a wheel. Spears off, and then bam. I know it sucks for the drivers, John, but I never get tired of this new damage model when we see the parts fly.
Yeah, that is that's something that's very unique to the sim experience, if you will, and showing that to our viewers. Not only showing it, but these drivers having to avoid some of those debris challenges on the track.
Absolutely. I'm sure they're happy that Jacobson managed to leave the debris off the track, but we're now watching Verde and Delp again because Stevens recovered and got right back to their gearbox. He's going to look to the inside down to the old hairpin. That doesn't work, though. That was brave.
Just what the director said. Yes, that was very brave.
I can't quite repeat that on air, but Verde certainly is looking eager on the brakes. That cost him a little bit of time. He's going to have to regroup and try again. He's got to watch out because LeBlanc and Santana are right behind him. Santana's moved up one position since we last looked. He's up to ninth now. As they now work their way through the chicane. Oh, that looked a lot better for Verde. In fact, he's got a nice little launch. Is he going to look to the inside? He's going to have to go way inside because Delt protects the middle of the track as they break for the hairpin. Could he maybe get the over-under coming off of it? He tries to get on the power better, but he doesn't get enough of it.
Here they come into Goddard's. Let's see if he gets to run off.
Ooh, that didn't look good. It was way offline there from Verde, unfortunately. So what was a very close run now falls back once more. We're getting close to the pit window, though. About 15 minutes into this thing. We should see some drivers in for scheduled work soon. Here, oh, and Verde goes from attacking to being attacked. LeBlanc on the back of him there. Almost did the same thing to him. Right on board now with LeBlanc.
Let's see if LeBlanc has a better shot at it than Verde did on Delt.
LeBlanc not interested in making friends right now. He just wants positions. Number 542 has started this race exactly where he was, or is rather, I should say, and really wants to try and make some inroads here. He's been tantalizingly close in this past lap. Now he starts to fall back once again. Another battle up front should certainly give him a good chance, depending on how aggressive Verde continues to be. Got a nice little fight in the mid-pack between Hall and Gunderson. Remember, we mentioned Gunderson losing spots earlier. Well, I guess he's lost another one because Hall has gotten by. Wow, this was a great move. Just got a way better exit coming out of Coppice and then out-dragged him down to the chicane.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. That's a great place. If you can get that run off that corner and down that long back straightaway, then it makes life easier for you on that pass.
So continuing on, Hall now finds himself in 20th and has already stretched away from Gunderson. Speaking of stretching away, real quick, our leaders have now split apart to 1.8 seconds. You're right here, John. I think Holland has plenty of pace in hand. He's just managing this race.
Yeah, which is quite smart because obviously we saw Seitz really putting the pressure on David there those first 8 or 9 laps, and that's only going to abuse his equipment more than David's.
Boy, that was a big look to the inside as we rode on board with Mate, and that's Duprat on the attack. He's going to dive it down to the inside of Melbourne, side by side off the corner. Better exit speed for Jean-Francois, and that's going to put him a full car length ahead, at least by the braking zone, but he still holds it shallow to try and cover off Duprat. Behind them, Rosenbaum is starting to catch up as well, but they don't change order. Mate stays in 13th. Great fighting between those two. I'm sure Rosenbaum would love them to do that a little bit more so that he can close in yet again. Down through the crane of curves and into the old hairpin. Most of the front of the field is spreading themselves apart. The gaps are at least 2 seconds for the most part for much of the top 10.
Let's go back to 21st position. We got a fight here between Raymond Day and Matthew Gunderson. Obviously, they separated just a little bit, but Raymond was all over the back of him going through that high-speed right-hander. Let's see if he can catch him on the back part of the track here.
Yeah, Gunderson on a bit of a reverse trajectory compared to Day. Even though Day lost a lot of spots, he's been trying to gather them back up. Remember, he started in 7th, had a mysterious spin and a connection issue. Looks like the connection's under control now, but the number 77 looming ever closer in the mirrors of that 33.
Ooh, as he brakes hard going through this right-hander.
Yeah, he certainly seems strong on the binders here. Could he maybe have a go from way back into Goddard's? No, he's not interested quite yet. He'll get one more try down into Redgate. Oh, but wow. He might be good on the brakes, but that was awful off the corner. And so he loses tons of time there. Looks like we had a spin with Aaron Webb in the meantime. In fact, 2 cars spinning at almost the same time. Christopher Richards and Aaron Webb, one after another, in the very same hairpin. Let's look at the replay here. Should be happening into Goddard, so we're a little far back.
But look at the beautiful houses.
Not sure there are those actually houses around here? Because I know there's an airport right nearby.
Well, there should be a castle.
Yes, there is a castle. Which I guess technically counts as a house, doesn't it? And there's the spin that we saw, unfortunately.
No offense, but
once again.
I think we built it up too much. It wasn't that exciting after.
No, it wasn't. Yeah. That was a lot of anticipation.
Yes,
Anyways,
it was.
So we head up to 7th, where we've got our first rear battle in the top 10. Verade, who was attacking Delp, now is trying to hold off LeBlanc, but LeBlanc is slow, and Santana tries to stick his nose up the inside, but is rebuffed big time. Don't need to go to it, but we had another spin from Hall. Or no, it was Thurman, I believe.
Brett Thurman, yeah. 69. Here comes that run from Santana.
Yeah, he, I don't think he liked that move. That was a little aggressive from Eric. As they break down into the chicane. Oh, both of them outbreak themselves, but unfortunately Santana was the worst of the two. He definitely gets a cut course penalty, falls back to 10th because of that. I was just about to say LeBlanc went way deep into that corner. You're going to see it here from onboard Santana. And then Santana went deeper. Still haven't had any scheduled stops from any drivers thus far. So we come back to our leader, David Holland. It is now up to 3.4 seconds over Seitz. Seitz has actually been chased by Clenard. Credit to Rod. He's only 1.5 seconds back. He's keeping him honest for that second place.
Yeah, so this will be interesting to see what happens when Seitz goes into pit. And Clenard. We'll see who takes tires, who doesn't. Obviously, if Seitz does take tires, that may leapfrog Rod Clenard into that second P2 position there.
Yeah, we could see some split strategy there on taking new rubber as we ride on board our third place driver. He's checking to see when we're going to get lap traffic for Holland, and he's actually coming up to Kenny Rodriguez and Aaron Webb pretty quickly. So he's starting to hit those slower cars. And again, that could affect his pace. It depends on when and where he catches them. And that's what Greg Seitz needs right now. He needs something that's outside of his control because he's not showing the pace compared to the number 18.
I tell you what, this is the Delp, Faraday, and LeBlanc show this evening. These three guys are constantly just going after it.
We had a slow car there on the front stretch. Oh, that's Daniel Barnett. He's a lap down, so he was just getting out of the way. And Santana's coming in. One of our front runners now taking a scheduled stop. I can tell you that Bradley Hawley and Brett Thurman also have pitted. Matei now pitting. So the domino's starting to fall.
Gas only for Santana.
So he feels confident enough on those tires. How does he come out into traffic? Looks like he's clear. No dramas for him as the 666 returns to the track. He will have some traffic in front of him in the form of Don Lee, but not thick traffic.
Yeah, I think we'll see our leaders come in either this time or next time.
Down in 15th, Raymond Day got another one. He just went by Owen McLaughlin. Day's gained a few positions from the pit stops. That's why he's up to 15th now, as you see. And Matthew Hall. Hall actually could get McLaughlin here. He's getting really close behind on that dark black Formula 3. We ride on the nose of Matthew Hall in the 912. Whoa! Wow, difference in pace through the chicane between those two. Oh, and Cranefist is in now. Number 55 pits. I believe he was, I want to say he was close to someone else at the time. He is going to take tires. Returns out. He might actually be our highest pitter because Santana is behind him. So despite taking tires, those 2 more seconds, this could work out well for Daniel. He returns in 16th with nobody in front of him.
We got David Holland coming up the about Goddard's right now. We'll see if he comes into pit lane.
We'll watch 6th place battle between Delp and Verde. Continuing on, Verde looking good out of the chicane. He's going to take a little bit of a peek. Is this a serious attempt? Not quite. He's not going to send that one in there. He's given some space at the apex by Delp.
Oh,
it looks like
almost a big wreck for David Holland as 2 cars exited pit lane.
Take a look at the replay. It was actually 2 things going on. Wildridge came out right in front of him just as Bradley Hawley went off in front. What happened to Bradley Hawley here? Oh, Hawley made contact. He and Gunderson came together into Redgate. This is the return to the track. That's Hawley off to the left that you see. Unfortunate for Hawley, he was the one that decked Gunderson this time. Wow. Oh, wow, he punted him.
Oh, yeah.
Gunderson actually had to take a toe from that. So that certainly compromises both their races, more so Gunderson than Hawley. Right now, your highest bidder is Seitz, and Seitz is battling with Clenard right now for 7th.
Leader's in. David Holland is in.
Maybe trying to cover off the undercut here, but poor Seitz, I don't think he'll get to use that if he even could have the pace because of Clenard on the attack as we ride on board with Rod right now. Watch and see where Holland comes out. Once we get onto the front stretch, we should be able to see him exit the pits from this angle on the car.
He's exiting now, fuel only. He's into 1.
And Seitz is coming through Redgate right now. Oh, but it's a bigger gap. Seitz is now about 5 seconds back from Holland. He has lost time. And not only that, but Rod Clenard with a quicker stop is now right up his gearbox. Looks like this is the end of the pit window because I'm seeing everybody coming in through the field now. Stick with this, though. Greg Seitz out and through Coppice with a lot of pressure from the 24, but he gets a great exit over that blind crest. So Clenard falls back slightly.
Let's see what happens here through the S's. They both get through there really good.
Clenard may have had something if Seitz just hadn't have gotten a magnificent run himself. Looking to square off Melbourne. And it once again works quite well. Credit to the rookie. He's dealing with this pressure incredibly well, but he's going to have to do it for 17 whole more minutes, or at least try and gap Rod Clenard so that he can get some relief.
What a great run by Jose Malbrand. He's running in the spot he started in, but this is an atypical spot that we saw him in last season. So kudos to him and his team.
Yeah, certainly seems to have found some improvement. He qualified in 4th. He stayed in 4th, and that's what matters. LeBlanc and Don Lee both off track. That's a lapped car.
Right in front of Santana.
I can't exactly tell what happened to Lee because he was off track for quite a while.
Looks like
And
he
then
just
LeBlanc just kind of
loses it.
joined him. Yeah, Lee came out of the pits and creeped through the gravel for a long time. I'm not sure if he was trying to find himself a bit of open track or what. Meanwhile, back to Cranefuss. This is the battle for 9th place. Santana just in front of him. Pisano giving chase, and LeBlanc in there as well. Coming down into the Melbourne hairpin, the 666 leading this train of 4. LeBlanc with his recent off lost all these positions just this lap. So I'm sure he'd love to have those back. Out and through the hairpin, although that was a horrible run through the final corner from LeBlanc. Those in front of him certainly not threatened coming down into Redgate. A little bit wide for Santana off of Redgate, and at the front of the group clipped a little bit of dirt but kept it going fine. It does allow Cranefuss to gain a little time. Now it's Cranefuss's turn to go wide. Almost 4 wheels off into the dirt. Pisano sees a little bit of a run, but he runs out of straightaway by the time they hit McLean's. One mistake like that could easily hand over a position with a group like this. Definitely a little bit of luck on the side of Daniel at that moment that Pisano was not closer at the time. Down and through the chicane. In fact, good run from Daniel. Allowed him to stretch away just slightly.
You know, Joe, it's interesting that the track temperature has gone down 5 degrees, but yet I am seeing cars go off track more in the latter part of this race than I did in the middle and even in the beginning.
We have had a fair bit of wind, but like you said, it's changed how many have been going off track. So, with the wind,
deep dive here, Owen McLaughlin.
That was on Matthew Hall down in Melbourne. That's for 17th position. So he's gonna give that up as we go to replay here. Did he try to make a surprise attack? All in the orange machine. Yes, he did. Absolutely mugged him. And that gives him the position.
Yeah. Took his purse and everything.
I think he's not going to give it back anytime soon. He's trying to run away. McLaughlin is still hot on his heels. Of our 37 drivers who started, we still have about
position.
34.
We haven't talked about them, Joe, in about 30 seconds. So we should probably watch this. Oh, as he makes a dive.
Yeah, and that's on LeBlanc, who has managed to get by a little bit earlier. A tiny little touch, but both come away from it. Cranefuss wants that spot back from Eric. They're going to come around the final hairpin. Eric way wide. He didn't even give a bother to that apex. And this is going to give another shot to Daniel. The 55 stays with it, tries to pull a little bit of the draft. It's not a long enough straightaway for him. Still, maybe he could get another bite down to the old hairpin. He gets a great launch off the corner, carrying as much speed as possible. Which side is he going to pick, though? Looks like he's going to maybe try and pull the inside, but he doesn't have the momentum. Now he starts to fall back in the heavy wake of the car ahead. Great job to LeBlanc fending that off.
A great job to both of them driving side by side. Yes, they did touch a little bit, but nothing major, nothing that caused damage to either one of them.
I think LeBlanc's got it under control now. The 542 starts to pull away from Daniel. With 12 minutes left to go. Front of the field is really not giving us much to look at. The top 10 all very far apart at this point. Most of the action's in the mid-pack like we're seeing here as, LeBlanc goes wide yet again down in Melbourne.
Director, can we go to a picture-in-picture and just keep it on LeBlanc and Cranefus here?
Yeah, really, it's they do not want to come apart. A bit of a shame, though, because all this battling has lost them touch with Pisano up ahead. I'm sure Pisano's not too sad about that, though, as he's got himself a nice 1.8 second gap back to them. You can see as we ride on board with Daniel just how far ahead the next car is. Oh, and LeBlanc off. Spinning it off of the old hairpin. Once again, a second mistake of the race for Eric. Loses him a position. Let's watch the replay. He's got a little slide on the way in. Bit of both, I think, yeah. As soon as that thing started to slide, that left rear clipped the dirt, and goodbye. Meanwhile, Jean-Francois Maté, who is still sitting in the 13th position, now has Eric LeBlanc right in front of him. Could get himself one of those spots that he's lost since he started this race. Got a little ways to get up to the back of LeBlanc. It's a bit closer back for 18th. In fact, Owen McLaughlin might have himself losing a position to Brett Thurman right now, who's going for the inside down into Melbourne. He's given space at the apex, and even though he stays incredibly tight to the apex, McLaughlin is still going to manage to stay side by side. They now come into Goddard's, giving watch behind. That's Rosenbaum in 20th position. Still neither driver is willing to give way. It's going to switch back to the inside for Brett Thurman as they come up to Redgate. He's also got a better run, but he's going to open the door for McLaughlin. Owen's not going to try and send it in deep. He stays behind. This makes it a 3-car fight now with Rosenbaum back there in the yellow machine. They come up to the old hairpin. Cleaner for Thurman than what we saw for LeBlanc. He stays with it, and he starts to pull away.
Let's remember Rosenbaum is the president of the Lap 1 Peace Club. So hopefully they can keep the peace here.
Yeah, I mean, that's only lap 1. That doesn't mean he's not aggressive on other laps. So you got to watch out for all the others. We've been having a few cars getting lapped recently. Our leader has now worked his way up to 24th as the next car that he is looking to lap right now.
Ooh, Rosenbaum with a good run.
Let's see what he can do.
on the outside here.
Inside. McLaughlin looking to see if he can carry the speed off, but wow, it just did not work from that time. Much tidier from Sheldon. That moves the number 13 up into 19th position.
Oh, but he goes wide.
Too hot. And he's going to spin it, and he's on the racing line. He manages to get it out of the way, but he's losing position after position. This late in the race, this is dire for him. Oh, and Santana. Santana's off with another car. Who is that? Rodriguez. That's a lapped machine. Oh, no. Santana just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Rodriguez goes off, and when he comes back on the track, Santana tries to pick his way through and picks the wrong side. Oh, big junk. I'm unfortunate to see his day end that way. Kevin's a guy that just never seems to have any luck in this F3 car.
He really doesn't. Obviously, he had a fast pace.
Meanwhile, as we come back to a battle on screen here, Lionel in a nice little fight. This is that's the car behind you, seeing the number 88 giving chase to Jean-Francois. Down to 7 minutes left to go on the clock. If drivers are going to make any moves, they got to start making them soon. And Maté is keeping himself well out of reach of Lionel.
We had that battle about 15 minutes ago between Rod Clenard and Greg Seitz, but that seemed to have gone by the wayside here. Rod is settled back about 2.5 seconds behind Sights right now.
Okay, credit to Greg. And there's a wreck right in front of him right now. That's Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum and Jacobson.
Oh, and Sights hits the spoiler flying across the track. Did he get any damage?
Let's see. This happened when Rosenbaum gets a little spin and smacks into the side of Jacobson. Trying to see here on the replay. On my screen, I don't think Sights hit the... Watch from our director's view. See if he sees Sights hit the wing. Again, you can get damage from hitting other cars' parts. It was very close, but I think he avoided it. Rosenbaum has since had to take a tow to the pits. His day is done.
It must have been all that chrome with the rust all over it, that helped deflect that car part there.
And racing in the salt a little bit too much there. Meanwhile, in 12th position, that is still between Matei and Duprat. Duprat's run him down, though. We are only gone for about half a lap here, and Lionel has just about halved, and in fact more. Look at him close in here through McLean's. Gets nearly within a car length of Jean-Francois. Heavy pressure on the Canadian. Let's see what Duprat can do. The Texan's got to run. He's going to look for it in the chicane, but thinks better of it. Doesn't want to get that cut course penalty or tangle with his fellow driver.
Pratt there going wide and then cutting in short. We'll see if he can get a run going into Goddard's here.
Matei is making sure that Duprat didn't have a look in on it. Oh, he's awful wide coming off the exit there, Jean-Francois. Texan gets close once again. He's going to have to get himself a great run off of the first corner here. Let's see if he can do it. Just not there. Stays with it, stays in the tire tracks. Oh, we had a problem with Day. Raymond Day loses positions with a spin out of Redgate corner. Single car incident, and off track he goes. Waits for a gap to get on and gets going, but he falls to 16th from that incident. Speaking of incidents, have we seen anybody disappear yet? I don't think we've had any DQs. So let's take a look at Holly, who's in a nice little fight down in 21st position. That's Sights behind him looking to lap him, but in front of him, that's Christopher Richards. That is for position. Holly's used to the blue flags over on the oval side here, John, so hopefully he's aware of how they work on the roadside.
Good point.
He's not letting Sights go quite yet. Not sure that maybe Sights himself isn't in a hurry to try and pass, because he's not that close to Clenard and not that close to Holland. He's going to swing it to the inside. Nice move by Holly, letting the second place driver through. But that does unfortunately separate him from Richards by a decent margin.
Boy, this battle between Jean-Francois and Lionel Duprat is still going on.
It really is. It was down to 0.2 of a second for a moment. Duprat's pushing. Car is just sliding through the corners now as they come out of Coppice, but he's looking much smoother that time than Jean-Francois, just not faster. He's going to pull the slipstream as they now break for the chicane. Jean-Francois starting to gap it.
Pratt not good through that through the S's there. It's interesting with this new release here. We're seeing, time differences from the start of the race about a full second, which we didn't see last season. We saw maybe 2 or 3 tenths slower, but even our leader, he's about 8 tenths slower than his best lap.
Which, by the way, I believe we might be getting the white flag this time for David Holland. It'll be awful close. Looking like we might have 2 to go. Oh, but he's coming up on traffic right in front of him. That was Mike Richter, who just pulled across the track after a spin. Let's get an onboard here with Holland, but my goodness, he's going to need a change of pants after the champagne ceremony.
Ooh, little Tony Stewart reference there. Ooh.
It was very, very close to losing that win in the flash of an eye. And it's now down to a minute to go for the number 18. Meanwhile, Clenard, who was battling for second, now has Malbron right behind him. Could Malbron get himself onto the podium? Clenard, who finished second last race, is trying to repeat his podium.
Yeah, Rod's fighting with a lap car there in front of him in a bad part of this track.
Yeah, that's Christopher Richards. Richards pulls off to the racing line. Does he let him through? He brakes a little bit early. That's going to give the spot. Oh! Malbron almost getting into Richards, though. They went side by side through the chicane. There's only so much you can do as a lapper, unfortunately, and
White flag lap for David Holland here.
Oh, you are right. Crosses the line with just seconds to spare. So who put in enough fuel for this extra lap? Ooh, Cranefuss off track. This happened in up in Coppice. Single car incident. Let's look at the replay. Woo! Went for a spin. 55 doesn't hit anything. He just gets going once more. Meanwhile, watching Clenard and Malbron trying to settle out this third place. Not missing anything with the leader. I'll give a shout when we get close to the finish line for the number 18. But I think it looks like Clenard's responded well. Clenard has managed to gap Malbron by nearly a second now. As long as he doesn't hit any awkward traffic through the rest of this, and most of it seems to be giving way for him, I think he'll be safe. Oh, we've got a car halfway through the ground? Okay, we'll go back to that a little bit, but David Holland is going to finish the race as the number 18 comes around the final corner. It is win number 2 out of 2 rounds this season for David Holland. He is starting this season off well. Greg Seitz does come home with the podium this time, doesn't fall victim to an incident in Clenard with his second podium of the season himself.
Yeah, Jose Malbran rebounding after that slip up 2 laps ago, coming home in 4th. James David coming home 5th.
Back to 12th place. Remember, we were talking about Matei and Duprat. They're still close together, but it's a big distance at this point between Jean-Francois and Lionel. I think unless we get a spin out of the 218, there's not much that Lionel can do in these last 2 corners that they have to go. Out of the Melbourne hairpin, tries everything he can to try and gain some ground. Jean-Francois, a little too smooth through that one. And once again, nice and easy on the throttle. That'll bring home a nice 12th place for Jean-Francois. Behind them, not really much in the way of battles. Hall beats Daniels and Day. So that's the last of our drivers on the lead lap. Let's take a small break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, but stick around because on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Donington Park. We just watched round 2 in the PRL F3 series. And in the end, David Holland got another victory. That's 2 for 2 so far for him. But he didn't make contact with Greg Seitz this time. He did, however, beat him very easily on pace from what we could see as he ran away as soon as Greg started to get close. But Greg still earned a well-earned second position and got his first podium of the season. Rod Clenard finished third to round out the podium. He was fending off Jose Malbron towards the end. Jose was trying to see if he could get something, but it was not to be. James David, bit of a quiet race there for the 89, but still a top 5. Nick Delp finishing 6th behind them. Stephen Veraday, who was fighting with Delp for much of this race, took 7th, and David Soroy in 8th position. Anthony Pisano finished 9th, and Daniel Cranefuss was 10th.
Coming home 11th, Eric LeBlanc, who we talked about many times during this race with the battle, three-way battle there going on. Jean-Francois Mattei coming home in 12th. Lionel Duprat, who had a good run there towards the end, coming home and finishing 13th. Matthew Hall in 14th, another good run for Matthew Hall, up 13 spots. Joshua Daniels in 15th. In 16th, Raymond Day. Boy, poor Ray had a had a spin early on in the race, and then he had a spin going into turn 1, but coming home in 16th spot. Brett Thurman in 17th. Owen McLaughlin in 18th. And 19th, Tyler Gore. And rounding out your top 20, Christopher Richards.
These are cars that are a lap down at this point. 21st went to Paul Wildridge with Aaron Webb in 22nd, and Charles Sumner, the last car, 1 lap down in 23rd. He came up from 36th, though, on the grid, so that was a nice run from Sumner. Bradley Hawley, not the result that he wanted, 2 laps down in 24th, and then David Hebert, 3 laps down in 25th. From there, you start to get into drivers who were DNF'd or were severely hampered, as you can see the rest of our field cycling across the screen. Now, we do have our second place finisher, or no, we have our winner ready to talk to us. Looks like John has caught up with David Holland.
Mr. Holland, congratulations on your P1 finish here this evening.
Hey, Joe. Hey, John. Nice to have you back, John. Thanks. I appreciate it. It was hard fought. Greg was keeping me honest that whole time. I was having to pedal hard.
All right, let's talk about that keeping you honest bit, okay? Because we were watching the first, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 laps, and there was about a tenth and a half between you two. Did you have an off track or a slowdown there coming through the S's?
It was actually on the final hairpin onto the front straight. I had never seen that before, and I dropped it off like maybe half a tire off of the inside curbing on that hairpin, and it was enough to pick up a slowdown. And I think it was like a second slowdown. So I was having to kind of manage that as smart as I could to not give up any more than I needed to.
Okay. So after that happened, you obviously picked up the pace because that 1.3 seconds down to 0.3 seconds turned into 3.5 seconds. So obviously you had the pace in the car. Were you just managing the tires and the expectations of the driver behind you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So after that, the car came in. We knew that with this setup, it was going to take, a good few laps. And right about that time, it started feeling really nice. So I was just pushing it as much as I could while I was feeling confident with it. Then after the pit stops, I realized I had a bit of a gap. So I was just trying to manage everything, make sure I still had some tires at the end if I needed it. But then we got into some lap traffic. Luckily, I was able to make my way through there without any issues. And yeah, brought it home.
Well, the start was a good start for you this evening. Congratulations on your P1. Anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, for sure. Got to thank PRL for organizing, Ninja Trader for sponsoring, and Vantage Esports. Appreciate all the work and all the time from everyone on the team. And also you guys at GSRC. Appreciate it. Also, had my dad back spotting for me tonight. So got to thank him. He did a great job.
All right. So, David, here's the deal. If you win another one, Dad has to come in the booth with you. Okay. We're just setting the ground rules going forward.
All right. I'll let him know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's your P1 finisher, Mr. David Holland from Texas. Joe is caught up with our second place finisher, Greg Seitz. Joe?
Yes, Greg got his podium that he missed out on at Suzuka, but Greg, it didn't seem like you had the pace for Holland. And for a brief moment after the pit stops, Rod Clenard was giving you something to think about.
Yeah, I think actually, if you look at it, I had much better second half pace than both of those guys. I was actually making some ground on David, and once the tires got back up to temperature, I was starting to pull away from Rod. The traffic, I think, kind of gave us all fits, so that probably evened out. Although before the pit stop, I got super unlucky with a guy coming out of the pits right into turn one, so I probably lost about a second there, and then screwed myself up by getting a slowdown penalty through the chicane. So, but yeah, I don't think David definitely had a little bit more pace than me, but I think I had a good shot after the second half of the race.
Yeah, you weren't alone getting the slowdown in that chicane. Interesting that you say that you felt a little stronger. We did kind of notice it seemed like the car kind of came into things later in the stint. Do you prefer to try and set up the car with these new tires to be better towards the end of a stint than the front of the stint? Do you like kind of having a closer underneath you?
No, I kind of try to have a balance, but I think in this car, at least, I definitely have a little bit of a weakness. Just kind of getting things back up to temperature to begin with, and then after that, I kind of find my rhythm and start doing pretty well. But yeah, the start of the race is always kind of a struggle for me for a bit, but once I get going, it's good.
Well, the first two rounds have proved to be tracks where it's a little bit difficult to overtake Suzuka and Donington. But the next one being at Road America, do you see yourself having a little bit better shot against David? Maybe you could finally get your first win?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, I'm kind of fairly new to this car, so I'm gradually kind of making ground as I go. Although I thought I had a great chance to win in Suzuka, but unfortunately, got the accident pushed me off the track, and that was the end of my race there. So I think I had great chances there. Not as good as I had here because I've seen David in the official races, and he's just definitely been faster than me all week. So we'll just have to see with Road America. Road America is definitely a track I like. So we'll see how that one goes.
Oh, we can't wait to watch that. I'd love to see round two between you two being able to go wheel to wheel. Again, congratulations. Anybody you'd like to thank before you go?
No, just my teammate with Russ Racing and David Cranefuss, and I don't know where he finished. Hopefully, well.
Yep, he did pretty good today with the top 10, and that was second place finisher Greg Seitz here with us. Up next, it looks like John's caught up with Rod Clenard, who got his second podium in 2 races.
Rod, John here. You started third, you finished third, but boy, not without any hard work on your part.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough race. I was just trying to keep up with Greg, and then I don't know, who was it behind me? Jose? I think it was Jose behind me. He was breathing down my neck. So I kind of didn't, I knew John had pace on me, and I didn't want to battle too much unless I really could secure a pass because I had the guy behind me breathing down my neck. So it was kind of a chess match as far as that went.
Rod, do you feel like you used up a little bit too much early on, or do you feel like the car came in better the second half of the race?
Now, I always use the car up as soon as I get out. As soon as the green flag drops, you can pretty much bank like 15 laps later, the tires are shot. So I guess it's just a Carter thing.
Okay. Now I didn't watch you on the pit stop. You only took, well, actually, no, I did watch you. You took fuel only, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, still a great podium finish with you this evening, coming home in third. I think last week I heard you came home in second. So your first 2 races, 2 podium finishes. Are you planning to run the full event this season?
Yeah, I think I am. I took the year off from karting, and I'm just gonna kind of concentrate on the local track here and sim racing. So yeah, I'm gonna try to make all the races. There might be one I can't make, but yeah, I'm gonna really pull for that champ.
All right. Well, you're going to have to fight your teammate, and the newcomer here, Greg Seitz, seems to be running strong as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very strong. Both of them are very strong. But both those guys are really clean, hard racers. we kind of know what each other's going to do, and we try to counteract that. It's almost like a game of Texas Hold'em. Who's bluffing, whatever. But it's fun racing against them.
Well, speaking of Texas, Rod, you don't live that far from David. Talk to your buddies one night. Maybe give him $10 and have him go over there and snip his power or something. For one of the races, give you a shot, maybe. Yeah.
I'm trying to get Lionel or Raymond Day to take him out. Actually.
Well, there you go. That's one way of doing it. Well, Rod, hey, congratulations on your third place finish. Anyone you'd like to thank before we let you go?
Absolutely. I'd like to thank everybody at PRL for putting on this. GSRC, you guys are awesome doing what you do. Ninja Trading, and also a little plug for the chassis I drive in karting in real world. CRG. I got to thank them for giving me the best kart in the world.
All righty, Rod. Well, you have a good evening. Congratulations again.
Thanks, John. You too.
That was our third place finisher, Rod Clenard, who certainly is going to look good in the points alongside Holland. In fact, he might be staying second in the points after that. We're going to close up, though, with a big thank you to our sponsor once again. Go check out Ninja Trader at ninjatrader.com if you want to see what they can do for you. Also, a thank you goes to iRacing for putting us on IESN. If you want to subscribe to the channel, all you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, John, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel. Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. Subscribe to GSRC's channel so that you can enter yourself into the giveaway. Don't forget, we're picking 2 people who we will give free items from our store to. Your choice of item. All you got to do is subscribe. Next race will be at Road America. That'll be Thursday, January 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to take a small break for the holidays. We'll see you after that. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. And before you do that, we do have the Lionheart Retro finale happening right now in just a few moments' time. But until then, next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.